In this episode, we're going to be installing the browser phone and Asterisk onto a virtual private cloud. This will be Google Cloud Platform and Amazon Web Services. So if you want to find out how to install the browser phone on a virtual instance, stick around. Hey guys, thanks for joining me once again. My name is Conrad de Vet and this is Innovate Asterisk. And in this episode, we're going to be using Google Cloud and AWS to install a virtual instance and run our browser phone in the cloud. We're going to install Asterisk, then we're going to set up Apache so that it can reverse proxy into Asterisk, and we're going to host the files that we require in Apache. We're also going to be using Let's Encrypt. Now, it's very important. You need to have a domain that's under your control. By that, I mean you must be able to edit or add the DNS entries, because we're going to point one of those DNS entries at our instances. We're actually going to point all 4 in the video, but only one may be applicable to you. So you're more than welcome to watch only the one section of this video which applies to you, but I will do all 4. We'll then, of course, be hosting the browser phone pages in the web service and pointing our WebSocket connection back through reverse proxy to our Asterisk instance. We're also going to install the Opus codec, but this time, because it's not on a Raspberry Pi and it's not on ARM processor, it's really very simple. We just choose it from the Make menu select. In order to continue, you need to have signed up to AWS. I'm not going to take you through those steps. It's really quite simple. But once you've signed up and you've gone through to the EC2 instances section, you'll be at the right place. The same goes for Google Cloud. Please sign up with Google if you haven't already. Any Google account will already have access to the Google compute engines. You just need to go through to that section. The wonderful thing about all of this is that it's not actually going to cost you anything. Both Amazon and Google have got free options. So Google will give you $300 to spend over the next 90 days. AWS, on the other hand, will give you what's called free tier for a year. That means that the qualifying instances won't cost you anything for up to a year. So let's have a look and see how we install the browser phone with Asterisk onto Centos and Ubuntu on AWS and Google Cloud Platform. So just before we continue, I just want to mention that if you do get any value out of these videos and you would like to support the channel and the projects that I work on, you're more than welcome to buy me a coffee. Something simple, doesn't cost a lot. You can head over to Innovate Asterisk, www.innovateasterisk.com, and click on the sports section there. It'll show you how and what you can do to get involved. Thanks then. I'm going to start by clicking the Launch Instance options, and I'm going to start with Ubuntu. We're going to search, and they have a straight up selection for you here under the Quick Start. You will see here it is eligible for the free tier, which is if you've just created an account, something that you'll want to use. And I'm going to use the x86 architecture. And at this point over here, I'm going to use a T2 micro, which is absolutely fine for what we're doing. And of course, it is eligible for the free tier. So that's why I'm going to use that option. Next, I'm going to configure the details. Now, this is absolutely fine. If it's the first time you're here, it'll want you to create a VPC. But I will have one because I already have other instances. So this VPC is absolutely fine. I don't have any preferences for my availability zone, so it must just go into each one that I want. And the rest of the settings are absolutely fine here. So I'm going to leave this as is. I want to create one instance, and I'm going to add storage now. And I just like to up this because on free tier they give you 30 gigs. So let's make it 25. All right. And then some tags, which we're not going to use, but under security groups, I do want to add a security group. Now under existing, right, I don't have anything available. So I want to create one, and I'm going to call this a demo video security group, and I'm going to say for demo video. And yes, I want SSH. Add rule, I want HTTP. That's the standard HTTP. I don't need IP6. And I'm going to add another rule, HTTPS, because remember our browser phone is going to run off HTTPS. This port 80 here is going to be what we're going to test our first site with before it goes to HTTPS. And so there is the HTTPS, also IP4. Add another rule, custom TCP rule. Here I'm going to type 4443. Right, that's our WebSocket connection into Asterisk, which we're going to be reverse proxying through Apache. And again here I'm going to use 0.0.0/0. This is for WebSockets, if ever you were wondering. I'm just making that note over there. Alright, so now I've created my rule and I can review and launch. At this point, it's giving me all the details. You can see I've set my storage to 25 gigs. Got my rules for access, got my instance and my operating system. Okay, I'm ready, so I'm going to launch that. But at this point, it's very important that you choose a key pair or you create one. So I'm going to create a new key pair. Now, if you have done this before, you will know that this is quite important. So again, I'm going to call this demo key pair. And this key pair is what I need to download now. And when I download it, I will use it to log in to this instance using SSH or PuTTY. So I'm going to download it. It's going to be there on my computer, and then I can launch the instance. Okay, very important that you download this file. You must get this file down from AWS. So I'm going to take this one here. Show in folder. I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it over there. You'll see I'll use that later. Alright, so in the meantime, it's launching. I can view my instance. There you go, it's pending. I've got a running state now. It's just initializing the instance. So that should say passing checks 2 of 2. And in a minute it'll do that. In the meantime, we can have a look here. We can see the details of our instance. We've got an IP address, we've got a public IP address, actually a name, which is great, and we've got an internal IP address and external IP address over there. So these IP addresses are both internal and external, and this is how we will reach our instance. For example, this over here is what we can use to reach this instance, and in the meantime I can use this as a name to get into our server. So if I click on the connect button over here, you'll see that it gives me some instructions, including how to deal with this demo key pair over here. So for the moment, I need to now create a terminal window. So on a Mac, you will see I need to do something like this. And then I'm going to say, according to this instructions, it's chmod. And this is the file that I need to chmod. So that's been changed now. It just removes a lot of the privileges on the file. Move that out the way. Now it says I can connect to this instance using this key over here. So I then put that in there. Obviously it's not exactly as they say it is here. This will need to be changed to the location of my key pair. So I'll put that in there like that. Now I'm ready to connect to this instance. Okay, it's going to ask me for fingerprint adding in SSH on a Mac, so it does this. PuTTY and things like that is going to be fairly similar. Alright, I've now connected to my instance. The first thing I do whenever I get onto an instance is I need to issue an update command in Ubuntu. Here we're going to use apt-get, so we're just going to issue this command over here. I'm going to run it, and that updates all the dependencies. Once that's done, I'm going to then make sure that I have got wget. So wget, yes, I have it installed. I don't need to install it again or anything like that. I'm then going to download Asterisk's source file. So that's the link over there. Right, that's downloaded. Now I'm going to unzip it or untar it, and now I've got an expanded folder in my directory. I'm then going to navigate to that folder, cd, and now I'm going to start installing a couple of things. So I'm going to say sudo su to get to a super user, all right? And then this is sort of one of the most important options. It's this contrib scripts install prerequisites. It really is a much easier way to install all the dependencies and the requirements for Asterisk. So just let it do its thing and install everything that you need. So long as you issued the apt-get update at this point, before this point, you will be fine. Everything that it requires will be there. Super, that's now installed. So we're going to run this command, which is the configure command with PJ project. Apparently you don't need to specify with PJ project, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it's going to then configure and check everything. You can see they're checking for. So it's checking for everything that it needs, and it's going to get everything ready for my make menu select. Right, that's what you want to see. You want to see this little asterisk sign over there. And once you've done that, you can now issue the make menu select. So I'm going to paste that command in there, menu select. Right, now the things to look out for here. First of all, I'm going to go down the side. So menu left and right takes you to the different subheadings. So I'm going to look out for some things over here. Most of your app stuff will be selected. Bridging modules, don't have to worry about that. That should all be fine and selected. CDRs, now instead of having the system freak out about CDRs not being available, I'm going to switch them off, and I'm not going to collect any CDR data for the moment. But if you want CDR data and you want to put a backend for that in, by all means go ahead. I'm going to switch it off for now because otherwise it just tries to log and make too much data at the moment. So I'm going to leave that for now, but these are some of the other things to look out for. You'll notice that chan sip on Asterisk 18 is here. It's on, but it's marked as depreciated. So I'm going to leave that for the moment as it is. Over here, one of the things to select is Opus codec, so put that on if you don't mind. For WebRTC, it's really good because it's a great codec for over the internet, especially if you're using your browser. It's the one that a lot of the browsers support. So I'm then going to go across here to format interpreters, dialplane functions. That should all be fine and on. PBX modules, leave that as it is. The resource modules, okay, let's have a quick look over here. First of all, I'm going to go down to PJ SIP, so res PJ SIP, PJ project, and PJ SIP. Starting from about over here, you'll need to make sure that there's a little asterisk next to all of them. And another one that's important is SRTP. Make sure that SRTP is there and enabled. And some of the other ones which are crossed out, you can see with the little X over here. You will notice things like timing and stuff like that. It's not important. What else is important here? This is looking good. The test modules won't be there. The compiler flags, you know what I usually do, better backtraces. So I'm going to leave it on here. It's a fresh install, so I don't need any of the utilities. And the AGI scripts I'm going to leave out. I usually put it onto WAV and take off GSM. And music on hold is fine. No extra sounds. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go over to save and exit over here on the bottom right. Save and exit, which will set us up for the next commands. It's actually a string of commands. And we're going to say make install, and make config. So I'm going to install that now. Fantastic. Asterisk is now installed. Exit from super user. And I'm just going to make sure I'm on my root directory, cd tilde. So although you have Asterisk installed, you don't have any config files. Let's get you some config files. This is Innovate Asterisk Season 2, Episode 2, and I'm going to clone that. Alright, and copy the config files from the config directory of that project to Asterisk, and that should get Asterisk working. But before we restart Asterisk, I just want to edit this HTTP file, http.conf, and inside there I'm just going to go and paste this HTTP config. Now, quite importantly, I'm binding it to this address. It's an unreachable address, local only to the computer, 127.0.0.0.0.1, and the bind port is port 8080, and you'll see why that's important later, because that is what Apache is going to reverse proxy that into. So TLS enable is no, and enable static is no as well. So Control O to write and Control X to exit. Now I have set up Asterisk with HTTP, and I have also set up all the config files in it. I'm going to restart Asterisk, and then I'm going to go on to work with and to install Apache 2. So in order to do that, I'm going to do quite a lot of installing. So I'm going to change to super user again, and I'm going to go Apache apt-get install Apache 2. Now, just to make sure all the various modules are enabled for what we need, I'm going to enable this A2nmod SSL. Even if they are enabled already, I'm just going to make sure they are. So I'm just going to run through a couple. Proxy I need on. I need proxy HTTP, so that one as well. And I need this one here, which is going to be our WebSocket tunneling. That's what's actually going to be doing the WebSocket tunneling. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to go and edit my ports.conf, and you'll see that it sets up with a few listening ports, and that's fine. I'm just going to Control K to remove those, give myself some space. And I only want to listen on IP4, so I'm going to give that restriction to myself, and I'm going to set up my 3 listenings: 80, 443, 4443. Remember, this one will be the WebSockets, that'll be the HTTPS connection, this will be the HTTP connection. You can remove that later, but we're going to use it now to get the Certbot to give us a certificate. So we're going to use that for now. So Control O to output, Control X to exit, and I'm going to move on to doing my first site. So in this directory here, Apache 2 sites enabled 000 default, I'm going to then clear out basically everything. Control K, which will just hold that down and remove that. And inside there, I'm going to put my one and only site. If you've got a more complicated system, well, then you must do whatever suits you, but you will see why it's important to set the server names up with these virtual hosts. Okay, so inside here, I'm going to be a little bit careful about the naming conventions, because this is actually the certificate name that Certbot is going to deploy for me. So if I want a server called AWS Ubuntu 1, then this is the certificate it is going to deploy for us. And this describes our service the best. It is AWS Ubuntu, and I'm just saying -1 to identify this specific instance. And this is the domain that I have control over. Quite important that Certbot's not going to let you get a certificate for a domain that you're not in control of, and we will prove control by having this point to the IP address of our computer, and I need to set up a DNS entry for that, for whatever we have typed here. So I'm actually going to copy that now, because we're going to use it in just a minute. So I'm going to copy that out, and Control O and Control X to exit that. And that is our configuration done, and that restart will restart Apache, and now I can test that it's going to work. So I'm going to go net stat, and I'm going to say -TUNLP, And inside here, I'm looking for Apache running, and it's listening on port 8080 on all IP4 addresses. Asterisk there is working, is listening on a local IP address, port 8080. And then, what else? Apache again, 4443, and Apache again there on HTTPS. So there, that's quite important that it says there Apache 2 on 443, listening on all IP4 addresses. So that's quite important information for us over here. Now that we've done that, we actually need to go back to our admin control panel and create the zones that create the DNS entries that we are going to point to this instance. So you can see this instance now running over here with this public IP address. We're going to need both those pieces of information. Now I'm in Route 53 because that's where I happen to be hosting this domain Innovate Asterisk from. But of course, if you are in control of your own domain and you're hosting your own domain somewhere else, you'll need to be able to get to the create record option, and I'm going to create an A record for the exact server name that I just mentioned, aws-ubuntu-1.innovateasterisk.com. You can remember that is exactly the name that we are hosting on the service, and this is where I've got to type the IP address. So to get that information, I'm going to select my instance, and you can see here, public IP4 address. That is important over there. So I'm going to copy this IP address and I'm going to paste it over there. So there's my IP address. Essentially, this address points to that IP address, the basics of DNS records. Okay, so it's going to create it. It does take a few seconds, so I'm not going to punch it straight away. The next thing we're going to do is install Certbot. So installing Certbot is done with something called Snap. So Snap would have been installed already with this instance. If it's not installed, you'll just need to install it. So we've got Snap install classic Certbot. Okay, and I believe Ubuntu comes standard with this image has come standard with Snap already. So I'm just going to press enter, and it will install the Snap Certbot for us. Okay, there you go, it's installed. I am going to create the link. This is sort of like a soft link through to the Certbot bin file, and then I'm going to initiate something called Certbot dash our hosting service, which is Apache. And the reason why I do that is because now Certbot is going to check my config files and generate a certificate for me, and I don't have to manage the certificate replacing or any of the certificate changes. So I'm going to then type my email, conradjdw@gmail.com, and then I am going to agree to your terms and conditions, but I'm not wanting to get any of your stuff. And inside here it has picked up, remember we created the site, it picked up our site, AWS Ubuntu 1 .innovate asterisk, and I'm going to press 1 to select it because there's the 1 next to it over there. So that's 1, and I'm going to hit enter. It's now going to do a request for me, okay, and it's going to resolve to that server, to this server, because of the DNS entry, and it has created 2 certificates for me. So that's awesome. And what it has actually done, it'll tell you here, it's created a config file based off our original config. Remember we edited, where was it? If I go up, I'll show you. We edited that file, and it's done one, which is like a copy -LE, so let it autocomplete. There you go, LE certificate. There you go. So that's what it's created for us. It always doesn't really tab out these nice and neatly for you, so I'm going to clean that up. All right, but there you go. It's a very simple site. It is AWS Ubuntu 1 innovateasterisk.com, and it's created a virtual host for us. So what does that do? Well, if I take AWS, copy that, and go into a new tab and press enter, it is now going to direct us to the Apache default page. There you go, Ubuntu Apache 2, and most importantly, you'll see that our connection is secure. And let's have a look at the certificate if you're interested. The details, there you go. It is a Let's Encrypt certificate, and it won't be valid for a terribly long time. It's just that it's got a very short validation period, and that's what Certbot is really all about, so that it keeps the certificates valid so long as it can prove that you have control over the domain. There's our default site, which is basically rendering this. This is what we're looking at the moment, because it's the default 443 site of this address. So I'm going to do something for WebSockets now, and I'm going to reverse proxy the details in. I'm going to reverse proxy the WebSockets connections back to Asterisk, and I'm going to use this as a template for that. You'll see that I'm creating a virtual host of 4443, not 443. It's quite important, but it is bound to any IP4 address. So over here, I need to take this line out. I'm going to use Control K, and I'm going to copy it from over here. So let's take that and follow my own instructions. Paste that in there. These two lines as well, copy from above as well. So Control K to take that one out and that one. And I'm going to go and get both of these two lines over here, copy and move down to here and paste them in here. So let's just create a nice little section for that. All right, so here I'm saying I also have a secure site. It is running off port 443. Its document root is the same. Its site is the same. It has now got all the certificate stuff and the certificate config options over there. My proxy request is off. However, I have got proxy pass on, and this is where it was quite important. It changes this request that I have inbound to the server into a straightforward WebSocket connection onto IP address 127.0.0.1 port 8080, which you will remember is in fact the Asterisk WebSocket port. So there is my connection in. So I'm going to write that, Control O, press enter, Control X to exit. Now that I've done that, I can restart my Apache service. So I'm just going to say service Apache to restart. And I've now done what I need to do. So I'm going to exit from that. And I'm back on my root. If I'm not, I'm going to cd tilde just to get back to here. Because although this is very nice, I want the telephone there. So I'm going to now Git Clone this project. Right? So Git Clone. HTTPS github.com innovate asterisk browser phone git. That file comes down, and I'm going to then publish it to the var www HTML file, and in which case when I refresh this page, it will now show the browser phone. Okay, prompting you to use your microphone, which you can allow because of course it's using the settings over here, and it's using the account details over here. We don't have an account, so let's go and create one. And in order to do that, I'm going to go and change the pjsip.conf file. So sudo nano, I'm going to go down here, and just at the bottom underneath these templates, under the users, I'm going to drop these users in here. These are users that are using the template. So I'll pop them in there, Control O, output, Control X, close. And I do need to update my dial plan a little bit. So I'm going to say extensions.conf, and let's take these out from extensions, just placeholder stuff, Control K, and I'm going to go and put a block which is in the instructions, all available for you, and all it really does is gives a basic dial plan between the users, and anything that it doesn't understand just plays music on hold. So Control O for output, Control X, and now let's give Asterisk a good old restart. It's got everything new and all waiting for us. So I've restarted Asterisk, and I can also go sudo Asterisk -R to, let's restart it again, make sure it's there. There it is. If I go pj zip show endpoints with an S, then it should show me the 3 users that I've loaded through the config file. Okay, so I now have a phone and I have users. So I'm going to take the address and put it in there. Obviously I'm going to take out the HTTPS, must be just the address. I'm going to have my port 4443. Remember, we specifically opened this IP address in the instance over here on the firewall and on our instance. And then of course Asterisk is always /ws. Over here I'm going to give it a DID user1. That's fine. Username was user1, remember, and the password was 1234. I'm going to use a SIP engine for now, save the details, and press OK to that. When it reloads, what it does show me though is that I am registered, and I can click OK. I'm going to call this music on hold just to test it. Testing, and it's a basic address, so I'm going to say *65, anything with a star, remember. And over here I'm going to go, we have the CLI up, so let me create a, there you go, you can see both together. I'm going to click on my music on hold and I'm going to dial. And there you go, music on hold. You may not be able to hear it, but you can see it over there. Let me see if I can get my microphone to play it out. There you go, coming out through the speaker. So now I'm going to repeat the process of installing Ubuntu onto AWS, but I'm going to do it in the Google Cloud platform. So again, you will need to get your Google Cloud platform logged in. I'm logged in over here, and once you are logged in, you will have this navigation section over here. This is unlike AWS, where you would choose your services from here and you would have instances here. Google Cloud platform has their navigation much the similar way, and you would choose VM instances. I have them pinned, so they're actually further down. It's under compute engine. You can see I've pinned it so that it sits up top here, and I've got my VM instances over here. Alright, so let's clear that. I've got no instances. I'm going to create an instance. So this is the same process as AWS, except I'm creating an instance in Google Cloud Platform. So my instance, I'm going to call it Google Cloud Platform Ubuntu, and yeah, my one, that's fine. I'm going to choose an area. I want to choose something similar to AWS, and that would probably be US West 2, I believe. That is sort of Los Angeles area, pretty similar, and 2A will be fine. Again, they've got 3 availability zones, very similar to AWS. If you want to know more about these zones and regions, you're more than welcome to read up about it. Again, it'll be a general purpose compute. I won't use medium, I'm going to use a micro, and I'm going to go down here and I want to change my operating system. So this is the way you change your operating system, and under Debian I want to choose Ubuntu. It'll be at the bottom over here, Ubuntu version 18 LTS, and a 10 gig, we'll do the same 25 gig as well. A balanced persistent disk, yes. So we can choose that. You can see I'm on about $10 a month over here, but I have got the balance of my credits. So this won't cost you anything, once you've gone through your credits. If you reduce your disk size, let's say make this 10 gigs, I have actually done it on 10 gigs before, it's not going to make too much of a difference. So we're on about $8. For double the disk space, yeah, I'd probably go for it. So sort of 25, and you can see, give it a second, there you go, $10. Really does make a big difference to have that extra space. So something worth looking at. Obviously this is just for a demonstration. I'm going to delete it straight away, so we'll leave that. So it's got two basics firewall settings on here, but I'm going to show you how you can make those changes later. I'm going to include HTTP and HTTPS. We don't actually need to worry about SSH access, and I'll show you why. There is a different way that we can access this instance. So I'm going to then click create there. So there's my Google Cloud Platform Ubuntu 1 busy being created. Now, in order to, while that's getting created, I want to show you how to give yourself access in the same way as we gave ourselves access to that port 4443, which is a sort of a outside of the normal port. So I've got them pinned, but essentially under VPC, that's what you want to look for. It'll be down here in the networking VPC. It'll be I've pinned mine. VPC, I want to go to firewall. All right, and in firewall, they've got a. I wouldn't say it's the greatest system, but essentially, I want to create a firewall rule up here, and I want to call this WebSockets. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it and I'm going to copy it, all right, because there's actually a sort of a tagging system, all right. So I've got the default network, I've got ingress, so for traffic coming in, I will want it on allow, so I want to allow, so it's now tags that I'm doing, so I'm specifying my tag as a WebSocket tag, all right. And the source IP ranges are going to be 0.0.0.0/0, which is exactly the same as what we specified for AWS, and it will be a TCP port, and the port will be 4443, as you can see by my history. Okay, so it's going to allow a specific port 4443, inbound, specified by that. It's going to be a tag called WebSockets so that I can identify it, and I have my name there at the top for myself. All right, so I'm going to create that rule, and you will see it in the rules over here. So you'll probably already notice HTTP and HTTPS are already there. The allow for SSH is here, and RDP, if you're doing a Windows instance, is over here as well. But essentially, these are now the three rules that we are going to have assigned. So let's go back to that instance in my compute VM instances over here. I want to go back to this instance. I'm going to select it, and you'll see it's booted at the moment. I want to edit my info, and under edit I'm going to go down to the networking section, and you can see here HTTP, HTTPS, and WebSockets. A bit weird, but anyway, that's how it works. So I'm going to add the tag WebSockets to it, and I'm going to click save. All right, so now ports 80, 443 and port 4443 are open for this server inbound. All right, external IP provided, and I can copy it to the clipboard. I don't need the keys because you'll see what happens here is that I have a way to access SSH directly in something of a sort of a pop-up window. So you'll see Google have a very nice and useful way to get you into their instances easily. So it transfers the SSH keys, sets it all up for you, and puts you into your console directly through sort of like a web browser type environment. So there you go. This is actually HTML being converted from the SSH session. So I can press enter. I get all the commands as I would, but it is in a browser page. It's in Chrome. You can see I'm actually in Chrome. So kind of nice. I'm going to just carry on like this. Now you'll remember from the previous section, the first thing we want to do is sudo apt-get update, and that'll update all of our dependencies. Right, and we are already on our root directory, so you should see ls -l will just give me my own folder. I've got no files in it, and again I'm going to wget *18 source code, so I'm going to run that again. Now the process is going to be almost exactly the same from this point. So if you followed this tutorial in the AWS section, the commands that I'm going to be executing are going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to now untar *18, and I'm going to then change directory to *18.9, and then I'm going to sudo su because I'm going to be doing quite a bit of installing. So I'm going to use the contrib scripts, let it do its thing. There'll be quite a lot of things that it needs to download. Give it some time to download them. Great, that is what you want to see. There you go. It is completed and installed, and you get this wonderful little logo there. So now the next step is make menu select. In menu select, we're going to now have a look at the modules which are loaded. I'm just going to use my arrow keys up and down, left and right, jump across, and you will see that most of the items are going to have the little asterisk next to them. The items which cannot be loaded or are not loaded are going to have the triple X like that, and then some of them are omitted by default, something like that. And we're just looking out for some of the basic stuff. This is absolutely fine, and you should see that most of the items have got a little asterisk in it, and most of the things which are being depreciated or taken out of asterisk are going to start having the triple X on them. And I'm going to go down to call detail records. Now we are just putting together a demo PBX, so I have opted to remove the CDR logging for now. It generates a lot of data, especially the CEL, so I'm going to take these off for the moment. Obviously if you are wanting to put call detail records in, you can leave them in. So I just want to double check here. You'll see that the chan SIP is under depreciated, but it is actually on, so I'm going to leave it, but there is a way to disable the load in the basic configuration, so I'm going to leave that for the moment. But of course chan pj SIP is there, so that's absolutely fine. Codec Translators. Now here's important one. We did set up the system for web. We are going to set up this for WebRTC, so I want to put Opus codec in there, so that's quite important. Make sure there's a little asterisk next to it. Format interpreters is fine as it is, all selected. The dial pane functions as well, absolutely fine, and most of them will be selected or are selected, so we can just leave them like that as it is. PBX modules, I'm going to leave that the same as that, under resource modules. Now I'm going to have a quick look here. I want to double check that PJ-SIP objects are in here. So res PJ-SIP, there they all are. There's a couple of other key ones inside here. If you go down, you should see res SRTP is there and on, so that's another important one to check. What else is important here? Most of the other things is fine. You'll see if you want to be able to send and receive faxes, this span DSP is there as well. And what else is there? That's all fine. Test modules, we're going to have those all unchecked. I generally like to put better backtraces on so that if it does crash, I can get a slightly better output. This is a fresh install, so I'm not going to worry about any of these utilities, taking those off, AGI. And then of course I do like to put WAV, especially if I don't need GSM sound. WAV will be the default sounds, and the music on hold will be WAV as well. So it sort of makes sense that core sounds and WAV and music on holds is all WAV. The extra signs I don't need, so that's absolutely fine. I'm going to tab across to here on the right hand side. There's a save and exit option. So I'm going to hit save and exit. I'm now ready to execute essentially 3 commands in one, because they just are one following on the other. Make install, and make config. So I'm going to execute all 3 of those commands now. Right, and that is what we're looking for to complete this section. We have now installed Asterisk and all its libraries and dependencies. We can exit from this to go back to our normal logged in account. We can change directory tilde. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to download a set of config files so that we can get our Asterisk system going. And the way I'm going to do that is just going to clone the Innovate Asterisk project for this episode, downloaded it there, and then I'm going to use the sudo command with my CP, and I'm going to copy the config from that folder, config, to Asterisk. Now Asterisk is going to have some configuration files, so I'm going to change the one HTTP file, use Control K to remove that, and then I'm going to copy that into there. So I now have a general, and inside general I have enabled. I'm binding it onto this IP address. That's quite important, 127.0.0.1, and my bind port is port 8080. I haven't enabled HTTPS because remember I'm going to be doing the reverse proxy from Apache into my port here, this bind address and port. I'm going to be using that on a normal WebSocket level, reverse proxied in from Apache, and I'm going to cover how to do and set all that up now. Essentially I can restart my Asterisk service now, so Control O for output, X to close, and here I'm going to restart my Asterisk service. Asterisk will now be running with that port open. Okay, and I'm now going to go on, because I'm going to be doing my installing for Apache. I'm going to then put myself into super user for the moment, and I'm going to follow the same process as I did before under the AWS environment. I'm going to install Apache, right, and again I'm going to make sure that the various modules are in and enabled. So I have got to, even though yours may or may not be set, I'm just going through them to be doubly sure. So there, proxy WebSocket tunnel, so that's quite an important one. Right, so I'm going to assume that Apache is now going to work and be configured. So I'm going to start working in the config files, and let's just take all of these out for the moment, and I'm going to put my own set in. I want to restrict my listening to IP4, so that's why I'm using this 0.0.0.0:80.443.4443. Remember, those were the same as the ports that I opened up in my Google console. So that is what I need to set here for Apache. Control O for output and exit that config file. Now I need to make a site so that I can use my Certbot. So I'm going to go nano, etc. Apache 2, sites enabled 00 default, and let's clear out everything here. Right, that's clear, and I'm only going to put in this small definition. Virtual host, port 80, IP4, and let's change this to what this box is. So it is Google Cloud Platform dash Ubuntu 1, right? That is a very good description of what this box is. So if I take that, copy that, and Control O, output, Control X, exit, and service, Apache 2 restart. It'll restart the service, and I can test that my ports are open. So I go net stat, and I use the TUNLP to show you that I'm listening on port 80 for Apache 2. Asterisk is listening on the private IP address port 8080. Apache is also listening on port 443, which we haven't got a site set for, but that's fine. And Apache is also listening on 443. Here I'm not using these two sites yet, but I've established it as listening. So now at this point, I need to go here, and I need to go to my Route 53, and I need to add another domain into my hosted zone that I am in control of. So I'm in control of innovateasterisk.com, and here I need to create an instance for Google Cloud Platform dash Ubuntu 1. Remember, that was our instance name that we set up. And inside here, I need to copy this IP address. So 3492.943. What was it? 3494. I'm going to take that and put that in there. 3494.26.241. And I'm going to create the record. So if I go now and take my address, Google Cloud Platform, Ubuntu 1, .innovateasterisk.com into my browser session, I will see under a not secure, can you see here, this is a not secure, this is port 80, our Ubuntu server appears. And this means that this site is being hosted to this page over here. And now it's time to apply our certificate and get this secure. So the thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to install what's called Certbot. So I'm going to use Snap to do that, and Snap will be installed by default on the Ubuntu instance. So here it knows what to do, but essentially Snap is another dependency and package manager, and you will see that it installs everything that it needs. Alright, so that's installed. Now there is a linker that you need to set up if you really want. I don't know if it's necessary, but there you go, it's set. And then I'm going to actually set Certbot for Apache. So this -- Apache, it will then ask for some basic information like email address, conradjdw@gmail.com. And it's also going to want me to agree to the terms and conditions, yes, and no, not for your marketing. Right, now it's picked up, so that was quite important. We made that site inside our 000 default. We made this site. right? And there I just set 1, for that's the site that I'm going to then change into an HTTPS site. So I press 1. It then sends off the request to Let's Encrypt, checks that it reverts back to this IP address, in which case it does. And you can see it's created me a PEM file and a key file. It's also created this file over here, which is our 000 default, but now it's -le and -ssl. So let's go and have a look what they did. And I'm going to then type in that file, nano, and there's our site. So they don't always format it really so nicely, so let's clean that up. But essentially what you should have here is a site that works over HTTPS, and I'll show you that in a second, because what it actually does is a redirect to the secure site automatically for you. Now I'm going to add the second site in, which is our WebSocket site. So this site here will host our page, our browser phone page, on this location file system using this address. And so let's copy that line over there, because we want the same thing. We want the same thing over here. See, I've said copy from above, so Control K, Control V. Alright, so you can see server name is the same. And then I'm also going to copy these 2 lines over here, down here, Control K, and I'm going to paste them in there. So I'm using the same chain and private key over here with my reverse proxy. So this is quite important. See this section over here? This takes requests off /ws, right, which is our WebSocket path, and I forward them through to Asterisk on the same address, this 127.0.0.1, which is what it was listening for. Remember, it was listening on those addresses and ports, port 8080/ws. I send it into Asterisk on the insecure WebSocket port, so it breaks from being a secure connection to being an insecure across this proxy over here. Right, so I have 2 sites. One is for hosting the browser phone, one is for hosting my WebSocket connection. So Control O, output, Control X to end that, and now I need to restart Apache so that I can see that my changes are applied. Right, I've restarted. So let's go and have a look back what happens. Now this non-secure site, if I go here, press enter, it then Apache instructs it to redirect into the secure page 443, right, which won't show you the port 443, but a secure site is in fact 443. And here's your Let's Encrypt details. This is what it has now given you. There's your Let's Encrypt certificate. You can go OK to that. If you want to see interesting more, if you go inspect and across to here, security, you can actually see that it's picked out all the necessary details. It says that the certificate is valid and trusted, and it connects with a TLS 1.3, which is good, and all resources are served securely, so you can be quite secure in that. And also remember, the /ws will also go through, but being /ws, it'll forward it through to Asterisk. If you actually go to this page, you will see that it doesn't like it. It doesn't want to send it through. So it's not going to work, but when you've got the browser phone connected, it does work. But what's quite important now is we've got the page, but we don't have the phone. So let's go and install the phone. So I'm going to now take this, go back to this section here. I'm going to exit myself from root, cd tilde, just make sure I'm in my home address. because I'm going to Git Clone the browser phone project. Once I've got it down onto my computer, I'm then going to sudo cp recursively the browser phone folder to var www.html. So once you do that and you go back to this page here and you press enter to reload, it now loads the browser phone. So all we did is replaced the root of the contents of this folder so that you actually have the browser phone display in it off that address. And now this is where you're supposed to put the account details in. Remember, the address will now be the same, obviously not HTTPS, so we take that off, but essentially this is our server address. Port 4443, that's quite important. And remember, WebSocket is /WebSockets. Now we need some user information. So let's go and populate some user information into Asterisk. In order to do that, we're going to go and we're going to edit the pjsip.conf file. So I'm using sudo nano and I'm editing my pjsip file. And you should see sort of near the bottom, after all the templates and all that kind of stuff, it's got the users section. So in the users, I'm going to copy and paste some users. Control O, output, Control X to exit, and I also want to edit my extensions file. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to take out from extensions, doesn't look very useful, and I'm going to paste that in. Right, so all it is 3 extensions which can dial each other, and if you don't dial anything that matches, it just dials music on hold. So Control O for output, Control X, and now I can restart Asterisk. So sudo service asterisk restart. Alright, that will restart Asterisk with all its things, and if I choose sudo asterisk -r, then I get to see the service. I'm going to restart it again. It looks like it's taken a while. There you go. There it's up. Alright, so if I use gsip show end points like that, I have my 3 users. So those are the 3 users that I loaded. Let's see if we can use one of those users in here. So give it a DID 100, give it a name user1, and it was user1. Password was 1234. It's a SIP connection. Yeah, I can also set all the appearance and all that kind of stuff. Notifications over here. I'm not going to worry about that now. So press save to that. Okay. And when it reloads, we should see our registered user. Okay, so let's make a contact. So test music on hold. Now, if you'll remember, it's an address book contact. If you remember anything with a star, what's star 65, for example, just send it off to music on hold. Here I can say testing music on hold and add. Right, so there's my test music on hold. I'm then going to hit, what I can do, I can put them next to each other because you can see, let's make that a bit smaller. So you can see both. Over here you can see that my user is now reachable. That's also indicated by this registered indicator over there. The phone is green. So I'm now going to hit call. And now we're in a music on hold call. I just will show you because of course it's not going to come up. There you go. This one's a bit louder, I think. There you go, music. The next thing I'm going to do is on AWS, I'm going to create a Centos instance. and this instance that I create is going to be CentOS 8. Now it's slightly different, and there's a few extra things, but at a point you will see we get exactly to the same point as installing on Ubuntu. We just need to go through some extra things. So I'm going to take you through the launch process. Over here, I'm going to search for CentOS, and I'm going to say CentOS 8, and what you'll notice straight away, it doesn't come up. But in the AWS Marketplace, there is the AWS, there's the official CentOS. Now, there is probably going to be some license agreement that you might have to go through in order to accept that. So you can see it does come as one of the supported software packages, and if it might require you to agree to terms and conditions additionally, which I have gone through already, so I won't have that option for myself. I'm going to use a T2 micro, and I'm going to choose next, the device storage and instance details. We can go default. This is all the same as last time. Add storage. Again, I get 25 gigs, so I'm just going to put in 30 gigs, so I'm going to put in 25 gigs over there. Next tags, and under the security policy, now this is kind of useful because we have already done this, so there is my security group. So I'm going to choose my security group, which has got port 80, 22, 4443, and 443, so then I can go review and launch. So here we have our instance ready to launch. You will see that there is a fee per hour in terms of the support, and you might have to get a license agreement sent through to you, but it's fine. You can just accept it and proceed, but you might see something appear on the screen. At this point, I have all the information ready, and if I click launch, it'll want me to choose my existing key pair or create a new one. Now, remember, we made one last time, and it in fact has suggested to us the demo key pair. So that's the one I want, and I need to tick that acknowledge button. So I have that one still on my desktop, so there it is, and I'm going to say launch instances. Here you can see it's verifying the entitlement to the product. For example, if you need to agree to additional terms of services, then you can it will prompt you, and otherwise it will just take you through if you have already done that. I'm going to go and view my instance being launched. Right, now that my instance is up fully, I'm going to give that another try. And there you go. So yes, and oh yes, I need to change my privileges. So under connect, it says I need to chmod the PEM file, so I'm going to then run this command, and now I will be able to connect to this instance using this command over here. And obviously I'm going to change this from the PEM file to the full path, wherever it is, and that should allow me to connect to this instance. Right, so I'm now connected to my CentOS instance. Let's make that a bit bigger, and I now have to issue the following command. So I'm going to go sudo su to get me to root, and I'm going to issue this yum update. So CentOS uses yum update y. Now this is all fine, except what you'll notice is that the app stream has no URLs in the mirror list. So after a little bit of digging about, I realized that CentOS 8 is to some degree end of life, but CentOS 7 is not, and CentOS 8 is becoming something called CentOS Stream. So the one thing you can do is this. So you swap the repos for stream repos, and of course the main problem with that is that it doesn't download it. So what you end up having to do first is changing your release server in your yum vars to 8 stream. Once you've done that, then you can switch out your repos like this. Right, that's installed, that's all of them. So if I do in fact run my yum update, you will see that everything is largely up to date now, so nothing to do. Our system is now fully up to date, but I do like to have the following tools: wget, nano, and network tools, which actually is already installed. So nano and wget, we need wget for downloading stuff off the internet, so you definitely need that. And now I want to use nano to edit my SE Linux, so I'm going to make this disabled. Oops. So I'm going to delete that and say disabled, Control O for output, exit, and then I'm going to, in runtime, switch it off. So I'm going to type this command, set enforce to 0, and then I'm going to install something called ELP release. Press Y to install. Now I'm going to install something called development tools. So this installs a lot of the source files for things. So here's where it goes wrong again with that 8 stream. So you can see the repro is EPEL 8-stream because we set it earlier on using this echo command and to the release server, and we set it like that. So now I'm essentially going to unset it in yum back to 8, because of course that is now going to mess with my group install command. So I'm now going to do that, and my development tools will start to download. Alright, so my development tools is installed. I now need to install something called Power Tools, and in order to do that, I need to install a few other things. So I need plugins core for DNF, so that is up to date. I'm just double checking here. This too will also be up to date, so it's probably up to date. It needed two extra things, so I'm going to update those. Yes, that's okay. And then I'm going to install this, which is another release. Okay, nothing to install, all up to date. And now I can install something called Power Tools. And if I want to test that, I can have a look here. I've got my AppStream base OS, I've got my Power Tools, I have everything that I need for my installation of Asterisk. So if I now exit from this and make sure I'm at my root, cd tilde, and I can wget asterisk 18. To a large degree, the rest of the instructions are the same on all these installations, so I'll just show you that you get to the same result. And inside asterisk, it's sudo su ourselves, and because we're going to be doing some more installing, I want to use the Prerequisites Installer to go through, and you can see that it now builds up a list of all the things that it needs to install. So it's going to take care of all the installation for all the dependencies of what I need for Asterisk. Right, so all the prerequisites are installed for Asterisk, and I can now use my configure script. Again, I'm going to include with PJ project bundled with it, because even though apparently you don't need to install it, you don't need to specify it, it comes default as of Asterisk 15, but I'm just going to leave it there anyway. Right, there you go. I've got my little logo, and I can use make menu select. Okay, so let's have a look here and see if everything is in. All our app stuff is in, and that's fine. Our bridging modules are there. Our core detail records, I'm going to switch those off. As you know, I prefer to switch them off, certainly for demonstrating. And channel event logging as well. Might as well switch those off. Okay, channel drivers are there, and that's fine. Chan SIP is there, as you can see over there, it's in, but we're going to leave that there. So what was important is that that Chan PJ SIP was there. All right, the Codec Translators, I have to go down and enable Opus. So there, putting that on. Format interpreters are fine. The dialpan functions should all be there and on. PBX modules, again, the same. And then in the modules over there, you can see that res PJ SIP, there it is, all fine. And here just SRTP is there, and that's also a good one to check that it's there. And the crossed out ones are the ones that we can't really use. So res timing dotty, this XMPP, it looks like it uses a dependency. If you want to, you can install this dependency over here, and then you can use XMPP as well. In our case, I'm not using XMPP, so that's absolutely fine. And the test modules is fine too. Compiler flags, I usually put this on, so better backtraces is on. Utilities, we're not using these three because it's a fresh install. AGI, I don't need to use that core. I'm going to put it onto WAV and take it off GSM, and under music and hold it is already on WAV, and extra sound packages. So if I go here, save and exit, that's what I want to have over there. Right, so now I've saved and exit my make menu select, and I can then go to the following command, which then does three things: make install, and make config. Right, Asterisk is now installed. So I'm going to exit from root, and I'm going to make sure I'm in my home folder, and I'm now going to download some config files, because remember, although Asterisk is installed, it is not in fact got any config files. So let's just copy them over from this GitHub project which I have set up for this. It's a very basic configuration, but what it does have is an HTTP config. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to set it to what I want it to be. So I'm going to put in here enabled, yes. I've got a bind address which is to my local IP address, reachable only within the server, port 8080. Everything else is off. So Control O to output it, X to exit. Now I can restart Asterisk, so let's restart it. You shall see that it is in fact working now. So now I can go on to HTTP. So I'm going to install a few things now. I'm going to sudo su again to super user, and instead of Apache 2, you install something called HTTPD. Right, and then the only thing we actually need to install separately is something called mod SSL. Otherwise, everything else as we need it. Right, so much in the same way as we configured Apache 2, we're going to configure the HTTPD service. I'm going to listen on port 0.0.0.0, and it'll be restricted to IP4, so space there. And then I need to also listen, because this is a custom port, I need to listen on port 4443. Remember 4443? Now the this port 443 is actually taken care of by another config file. So I'm not going to need to include it. It actually clashes if you include it again. So output, exit, and I'm going to make a site. Now HTTP, in the way it's configured, doesn't actually have this 00-default. So you'll see this is actually a new file that I'm creating. It's a new file and nothing in it. So I'm going to then create it like this. Remember, I first create a site 00:80. So it's port 80. It is Google Cloud, not Google Cloud, this is AWS Centos. So this is what we're now going to be hosting, and we're going to make a host entry for that, right? So quite important that we remember that address over there. So we're then going to output that, enter, exit that, and now slightly different, systemctl. We're going to systemctl enable HTTP service, so it's created a link for us, and we're going to start or restart it. So I'm just going to choose restart, and it should restart fine. So there you go. Now let's have a quick test to see what's on our port list. So remember, we use netstat, and we're listening on HTTPD 4443, that's for WebSockets. We're listening on port 80, okay, and port 443 will also be here, and you can see it does it slightly differently. It just says colon, so in other words, anything on 443, and you will see you'll see how that plays in later with that, because basically that's any IP address, IP6 or 4, but essentially that's also fine. Okay, so we've got port 80, port 443, and port 444, port 80, 4443, and port 443, which is exactly what we need. Those are the ports that we need open. This is essentially everything that's open on this box. And of course, what's quite important here is that if you have a look at Asterisk, Asterisk is hosting its port 80, which is, remember, that proxied port and IP address on this unreachable IP address. Remember, this IP address is not reachable from the internet. If you try and ping this IP address from any other computer on the network, well, you'll just be pinging yourself. So it essentially refers to yourself, but from the context of yourself as well. So in other words, you can't ever reach this address from another computer. It's always yourself. And that's why we use it like that. So there's a local binding for yourself. Okay, but this is correct and what we want. So this is quite important that I get that name absolutely right, and it was AWS Centos. So if I type that in there, I get my address, and my IP address is what I get from here. So if I go back to instances, and it is the bottom instance over here, this one here, which I'm connected to. So you should see that I'm connected on this IP address here. You can see that it gives you all the details. EC2 5253, so that's this one here. I'm then going to copy this IP address. So I'll copy it from here. I'm going to go here and I'm going to paste it there. So when I type in aws-centos.innovateasterisk.com, it routes to this IP address. I should be able to create a new tab and type in this address on port 80, remember? So it's not with HTTPS, so it is port 80. And I press enter, and I get the test page. Right, so this works. HTTP service, this is my Apache CentOS 8 page, right? This page appears because I've got nothing in my root directory. It is not a secure page, which is correct, and we are going to get Certbot to change that. So let's go and change that. So back in my command line, I'm going to now install snapd, which is just yum installs snapd, and I need to install it with yes. Now that that isn't complete, I'm going to essentially enable something called snapd sockets, and I will also create the symbolic link which they do on the other applications as well. And now I can install something called core, which I believe should be up to date. Sometimes I do it too early, so I'm just going to give it a second. There you go. Super, it's now installed. It suggests that you do a refresh, but I do believe it's all up to date. Okay, so all up to date, and I can install with Snap something called Certbot. Here you go. So now it's going to install Certbot with all its dependencies, and again I'm going to create the linker for it, which is that. Okay, now that I have installed that Certbot -- Apache, which you will recognize from the other installations, will install Certbot for me. Okay, again it's going to ask me for my email, conradjdw@gmail.com. Yes, I agree to the terms, but no, I don't want your marketing. Right, and again it's picked up my address, so 1, and it's going to do the validation based on the availability of the domain. Okay, it's successfully installed 2 certificates, and I have this extra file, right? So if I go nano and go to that file, you should see there is all the things to install a certificate, and all that we need to do is copy one for WebSockets. So I'm going to copy it out of a template that I have, which is basically to do that. All right, and then I need these 2 over here, and I need to take these and Control K, Control K, Control V, enter, and remember I need this one as well, so it's AWS Centos. So this is AWS Centos here, and Control K and Control V. All right, next slide. All right, so AWS Centos is still going to operate off a different port, 4443 and 443. So we are going to actually go and install the browser phone in that address over there. Let's go and see what that happens. So in other words, I output that and exit that and restart Asterisk. So quite simple, just service httpd restart. Then it restarts the Apache service, and once the Apache service is restarted, if I refresh this page, remember I didn't go anywhere else, I just refreshed it, it now makes it a secure connection, and in the secure connection you can see the valid certificate over here. So this is a Let's Encrypt certificate. As you can see, it's been issued to us by the Certbot system, which will automatically renew it as well. Alright, so there's a Let's Encrypt certificate, and it has done the redirect for us. So now it is on AWS Centos.innovateasterisk.com. It is an HTTPS page, it's protected, and we now need the phone. So let's go and install it. I'm going to exit from this. We're done. CD tilde just to make sure we're in our root directory, so that I can do Git Clone browser phone, and that's the address. And once it's downloaded, I'm going to choose sudo cp, which copies it into that folder. In fact, if I just hit refresh now, you should see that the browser phone should then appear. Browser phone, there you go. Alright, and now the phone will display, and it allows you to enter your account details in over here. Now we have an address, so we can put that in. So I'm going to just take that out, AWS Centos. And again, we know that our port is 4443, and WebSockets is the port. We have a telephone number, we have user 1, but we need these details in here. So let's go and populate them. So I'm back here, and I'm going to open something called pjsip.conf. All right, and if I go down to the bottom in the user section, I'm just going to drop these users in. So I have preset 3 users, Control O, output, Control X to exit, and I'm also going to quickly update my dial plan a little bit. So Control C and V, and give me Control K to delete that. In subscriptions, I'm going to copy and paste that in. It's a basic dial plan, just allows you to dial between each other, and anything else goes to music on hold. Control O, output, X, exit. And now I can restart Asterisk. So I'm going to then choose service restart, and if I go sudo asterisk -r, there you go. And if I choose pj sip show endpoints, you should see my 3 users. It allows you to now register these 3 users. So it was user 1, password 1234, and the SIP engine, you can change all the appearance and all the other stuff if you like, but that's this one. And I'm just going to go to the bottom and choose save. Okay. Right. There is my user 1 who needs a telephone number to dial. Music on hold. And it is an address book contact, *65. Description, testing the music on hold, add a contact. So there's my contact, there's my dial plan, and let me move that to the side so that you can see both. It's kind of a flexible UI. I'm going to hit dial, and it should appear here. The one thing that you won't be able to hear right now, because I haven't got the speakers working, so there you go. Not the greatest sound, but there you go. You can hear that the music on hold is in fact working. And there I have my call. So I'm going to click on Create Instance to create my Centos instance. And I'm going to call this Google Cloud Platform Centos 1, like I did. And I'm going to choose my area, which will be West 2A. That's fine, doesn't matter about the availability zone, but the Los Angeles will be similar to the AWS region. Series E2 is fine, and I'm going to use E2 Micro. I am going to change this from Debian to Centos, which is what we want. And here you will actually see something really quite nice now, is it supports Stream 8. So remember previously we had the problem with the repos not working. We had to put in Stream. Well, there's the Stream 8 already set. So we can choose that as the disk, which is probably about $9. So there you go. I'm going to allow HTTP traffic here, and HTTPS, remember I have to add the other tag that uses tags. So I'm going to add the other tag once we've created the instance. Right, so there is my Centos instance being started in the same instance, in the same zone, US West 2A. It hasn't got an IP address yet. It's busy booting and setting up, so I'm going to just let it complete that. Now that it is complete, I need to go into this instance and edit it. So I'm going to click Edit, and once I edit it, I need to add that tag to the network. Remember, this must be WebSockets. Right, so I'm going to have that as an extra tag. That allows the extra port 4443 to be accessible. And once I have made those changes, I'm then going to go back here, and I can click on the SSH button to log me in directly through a web browser console directly into the instance. So I just click on this button here. There are some other options, but this is by far the easiest, even if it is slightly slow. Alright, so I'm in now, and the one thing I'm going to need to do is be root, so sudo su, I'm now root, and let's see what happens now, because I need to run the yum update, and because of all the repos being correct, you should see that the upstream now does work. Right, now that that's installed, we can continue, and again, some of this might be superfluous, but I just need to make sure that I have the various dependencies available so that I can get power tools installed. So I need something called power tools. So that was all up to date, and then this is probably also going to be fine. And I probably also have got my latest ELP releaser. This should mean that it is already on the latest, so it says nothing to do there. Alright, so now I can make sure that set enabled for power tools is on, and I can, using this command repo list, check that my power tools is available. So that's available there. Alright, now I'm ready, so exit from that and make sure I am in my home directory, which I am, so that I can install Asterisk. I'm then going to untar it, go to that directory. Now I'm going to be installing quite a few things again, so I'm going to sudo superuser, and I'm going to use my very important install prerequisites script. Great, now that that's installed, everything is ready for me to use this command /configure with PJ project bundled. Great, and that's what we want to see over there. So that logo appears, means you're doing well. Now I'm going to go into make menu select. Okay, once we're inside make menu select, I just want to double check that we've got everything here. So you can see our app underscore applications. Everything seems to be fine over here. Some of them will have the XXX X'd out. Otherwise they will be available and usually ticked or on wherever applicable. Bridging modules is fine. Call detail records. Now I like to switch these off because in my demonstrations they're not necessary, but you of course can leave them on, so leave them on as you like. The channel drivers you will see here. I do have ChanSip, it is there, but it's under depreciated. It's not going to be on for much longer, but essentially we will for the moment just leave it. Codec Translators, here we go. I need to now install Opus Codec because we are going to be doing WebRTC, and WebRTC works very well with Opus Codec. Format translators I'm going to leave as is, they're all on. My dial plan functions is absolutely fine. PBX modules, I'm going to leave that as is. The resource modules, so let's have a look here. Resources, okay, I've got now, if I go down, PJ SIP is on and ticked, so that's absolutely fine. A couple of others I like to double check just to make sure. I've got SRTP on, so that's what we need for WebRTC calls, so that's absolutely fine. The rest is fine, and default settings is absolutely fine. The test modules will be all off. The compiler flags, as I said before, beta backtraces I usually leave on. Utilities, we don't need any of the utilities because it's a fresh install, so I'm going to leave that. AGI samples, again, the core sounds, I'm going to put them over onto WAV and take off GSM. Music on hole's already on, sound packages is already off, and over here on the bottom right I'm going to choose save and exit. Now I need to execute the following 3 commands, and they're going to be done one after the other. Make install, and make config. After what seems like forever, you have your Asterisk installation installed. I can exit this and go back to my home directory, and at this point Asterisk will be installed, but there won't be any config files. So let's go and get ourselves a bunch of config files. I just want to make sure I'm getting the right ones. It'll be season 2 episode 2, and I'm now going to copy those ones over from here. Let's make this adjustment. Season 2, Episode 2. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the config files. I'm going to take out these lines in here, and I want to make sure my HTTP is configured correctly. Now remember that I am going to enable HTTP, not TLS, and I'm going to bind it to a local IP address 127.0.0.1. I'm going to then make the binding on port 8080, and I don't want TLS, and I'm going to be using the Apache reverse proxy system in order to get my connections in here. So I'm going to save it like this. Now essentially Asterisk is ready to be restarted, and I can restart Asterisk and it will essentially be working. So I'm going to move on now to install the Apache service. So I'm going to choose sudo su to go to superuser, and I am going to install with yum. I'm going to install httpd, which is just sort of like an old naming reference for Apache. And if you can remember from the other video, I do need to add mod SSL, so I'm going to install that as well. Now that Apache is set up, I want to go down to my config file, and here I'm going to listen on port 8080. I just want to restrict that to port to IP address 4 only, so I'm going to use 0000:80. And I'm also going to listen, I will need to also open up this port, which is 4443. Remember, that was the extra port that we opened in the firewall. So Control O for output, Control X to exit. And I'm going to create myself my first site in much the same configuration as Ubuntu, and you'll see that this is a new file that I'm creating in etc httpd confd 000 default. So it doesn't really have the same conventions, but I'm going to make it the same. So I'm going to put that in here, and over here I need to make sure that I have a suitable name. So I'm going to use Google Cloud Platform Centos, because that's what we're installing here. Obviously you're not going to have both, so I'm just going to choose the one. Alright, so this is our server name. This is essentially what we have, what we are going to point our server at. I'm going to have to make a domain name for that, remembering that if you are not in control of the domain, then you cannot use this system. It must be a domain-based system, because Certbot is going to generate a certificate for us because we have control over this domain. Alright, so Control O to output, Control X to exit. I need to use systemctl to enable HTTPD service, and I'm going to also restart it. So essentially at this point, Asterisk and Apache are running, and if I issue this command, I will see that SSH is running on port 22, HTTPD Apache is running on port 4443, which is restricted to IP4 IP address. It's also running on port 80, remember, because of our restriction. Asterisk is running on port 8080, listening, but it's listening only on a local IP address, so it won't be reachable. And here you will see 443 is what HTTPD, because we used mod SSL, it's installed that. It's listening on any IP address. We're not going to really change that, and that's fine like that. Alright, our Asterisk is also running on port 5060 for normal SIP and things like that. But remember, we come in for WebSockets through this IP address, port 8080. Okay. So at this point, we need to actually create a domain entry for this service. I have my domain in AWS, so I'm just going to type in here Google Cloud Platform Centos, and I need to go and get the IP address. So the Centos one is this machine here. That's what we're busy running now. Its local IP address is the 10 range, and its live IP address is this one. And I'm going to copy this IP address, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to paste it in here. So this domain points to this IP address. I'm going to create this record. I'm now going to install Certbot. Now, Certbot needs to be installed with snapd. Snapd is installed with yum. Yum install snapd. Alright, it needs these files. Install them. Right, after that's installed, we need to enable this socket, and we're going to create a link to the binary file. So I'm just going to use this command over here. Now, after you install it, sometimes it complains that it's still starting up. So it's still starting up. Give it a second and wait a few seconds. Okay, there you go. It's now downloading and installing the files that it needs. Excellent. It is now installed. There is also something called a refresh, but I believe that it's all up to date, and I'm going to now use it to install the Certbot. Right, it is installed, and I just need to create a link to the binary file if necessary, and I can now get to the point where I actually install Certbot Apache. But before I do that, I just want to double check that our domain is working, and I'm going to add another tab, and I'm going to say Google Cloud Platform -CentOS, which was the name of that domain that we gave it, remember? And we pointed it to this box. So at the moment, it should show us a not secure site, port 80, that's correct, but it will give us the default page for HTTP or Apache, whatever they want to call it now. So essentially, this page is being hosted by our Apache service. Now that means that our Certbot can validate for our certificate. So if I type now Certbot Apache, it's going to ask me for my email address. Right, and it wants me to agree to the terms. That's fine, but I'm not going to go into your mailing list. And there it's picked up the domain, all right, as part of our config files that we installed. Its site name is being displayed over there, and we're going to choose 1. Okay, and it's now they're going to request the certificate. Because the site is essentially reachable via port 80, it is then going to validate it, and there you go. It's given us 2 certificate files. Now this certificate will be maintained by Certbot, so you don't have to worry about it in the future. And what it's actually done is it's created a secure page version of that site that we already had. So we had 00default.conf, and it's created a secure one, and it will be redirecting the port 81 to this page. So whatever is being hosted here is in fact what we're going to see. I mean, let's have a quick look. So you'll see that if I'm on the non-secure site now, I press refresh, it actually doesn't even give us an option anymore. It just automatically refreshes us to the secure one. So it's now secure with a valid certificate. It is issued by Let's Encrypt, so it is a Let's Encrypt certificate. It's got a redirect on it, and this is still the default page. So let's go and update our site. And the one thing we're going to do is we're going to create another virtual host in the same file. It's fine, we can do that, there's nothing wrong with it. And I'm going to put it in just underneath, and I want to copy certain things out here. So this file here is this server name, so I'm going to go up to server name. You can see that it says copy from above, and Control K and Control V, and just line it up nicely. So the server name is the same. I can take these 2 certificates out, Control K, and replace them with these 2 files over here. So I'm going to copy these from here. So just Control C, Control V, and put that on the new line. So I have my certificate files and the configs, that's fine. And this is the reverse proxy for WebSocket connections that I was telling you about. So that's quite important that that exists there. Remember, this is only going to really be used for our WebSocket connection. This is going to be used for hosting the page. So this is hosting the page, this is hosting the WebSocket connection. But if somebody actually does land up on this page, you can serve them with the same content of this one. It's just a sort of like a fallback, all right? But at the moment, we're not actually hosting any pages. So let's save that, exit that, and go and put, well, let's restart our service. So let's go and service HTTP restart. We restarted our service now, and I'm going to then download a copy of the browser phone, and I'm going to then copy the contents of the phone directory into the root directory of our Apache web server. Alright, and remember, this is the same folder that port 80, port 443 and 443 uses. So if I refresh now, it'll show me the browser phone. So the browser phone is now loading, and when it loads you will be faced with this. Okay, so I have now the information for the account, and I will take that and put that in there. Obviously I don't need HTTPS. Remember, we were all going to run everything out of the same domain, just from different ports. So this port is 4443. I know my WebSocket connection is WS, and I can give it a DID. Essentially this is user1, and my username, I don't have any users, so let's go and put some users in. So I'm now going to go to sudo nano, and I'm going to see etc asterisk pjsip.conf, and down at the bottom here I'm going to put in my users. So I'm using the templates that I've already established above, but I've put 3 users in there. Control O to output and Control X to close. I also want to update my dial plan a bit. It's very simple, but I want to make a small change to it so that all this these extensions can dial each other. I'm going to go down from extensions, Control K to remove that, Control V, and I'm going to go Control O and Control X. Right, now I can restart Asterisk. So I'm going to say sudo service asterisk restart, and I'm also going to go sudo asterisk -r to get into Asterisk. Alright, so there's Asterisk. I can show you pjsip show endpoints with an S, and there's the 3 users that I've just loaded. Right, so that means I can use those 3 users. User 1, no space, password 1234. I don't need any other details. It's not SIP or anything like that. I mean, you can put it all in, appearance, audio, video, all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to click save now, and that's going to then save that details. Let's see if I registered correctly. No. Sending registration, registered. So let's pull that to the side to see what's happening. You can see here that I have in fact registered a user, so I must go and add music on hold, and I'm going to say test MOH. It's going to be an address book contact, star 65, my contact number, add, and there's my contact. And I can now click here and it will show me my dial progress over there. So let's have a look. Alright, playing music on hold. You're not able to hear this, so let me just change this to output from here. There you go. There you go, music on hold playing. And that is the browser phone installed on Centos on Google Cloud Platform. So there you have it. Google Cloud Platform running Ubuntu 18 LTS and CentOS 8 Stream, as well as AWS also running Ubuntu 18 LTS and CentOS 8. Now you see there's a few things that we have to do on CentOS, but in the end it all works just the same. Now the installation, as you saw, was quite similar across all of them and achieved the same result. So now you can host your browser phone in the cloud and have connections come in. But please be aware that the usernames and password that I have demonstrated in this video are really not suitable for a live instance. And you want to make sure that you apply a little bit of common sense to some of those usernames and passwords. So if you got any value out of these videos, please consider supporting my channel. You can go through to innovateasterisk.com, click on the support section. It also shows you how you can buy me a coffee. So, see you soon.